The transport ship landed on Station Helios 7 with a soft hum. The doors opened and cadets from 12 different planets walked out into the massive docking bay. There were beings with scales, beings with feathers, beings made of living crystal, and beings with too many legs to count. Among all of them walked one human. His name was Park Do-hyun. He was 22 years old. Born on Earth in a small farming village in the mountains of Korea. He had black hair, tired eyes, and a kind of calm face that made people think he was either very brave or very stupid. Most aliens who met him assumed the second option. Do-hyun looked around the station with quiet interest. Everything was huge. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds actually formed near the top. The walls were made of some kind of metal that shifted colors when you looked at it too long. Thousands of aliens moved through the space, speaking in languages his translator could barely keep up with. A tall insect-like creature walked up beside him. It stood on 4 legs and had 2 more arms folded against its chest. Its head was shaped like a triangle, with large compound eyes that reflected Do-hyun's face back at him in 100 tiny pieces. "You are the human," it said. Its voice sounded like clicking stones. "Yes," Do-hyun said. "I am Park Do-hyun. You can call me Do-hyun. I am Crix. We were assigned to the same sleeping quarters." Crix's mandibles clicked nervously. "I have read about humans. You come from a death world." Do-hyun blinked. "A death world?" "Your planet, Earth. It has extreme temperatures, violent weather, predators, diseases, radiation from your sun, poison plants, venomous animals, earthquakes, volcanoes." Crix paused. "How are you alive?" Do-hyun thought about this for a moment. He remembered the summers helping his grandfather farm rice in fields where snakes sometimes hid. He remembered the winters when snow piled so high they couldn't open the door. He remembered the time a wild boar had chased him up a tree when he was 12. "I don't know," he said honestly. "We just are." Crix made a sound that might have been fear or respect. It was hard to tell. They walked together toward the cadet barracks. Along the way, Do-hyun noticed other aliens watching him. Some whispered to each other. Some moved away when he got too close. A group of small furry creatures actually ran in the opposite direction when they saw him coming. "Why is everyone acting strange?" Do-hyun asked. "Humans are new to the galaxy," Crix explained. "Your species only made contact with us 100 years ago. That is very recent. Most species have been part of the Galactic Alliance for thousands of years. No one knows what to think about humans yet. What do you think about humans?" Crix's compound eyes shifted. "I think you are small and soft and have no natural weapons. I think you should have died on your death world long ago. I think there is something wrong with your species that you did not." He paused. "I think this makes you interesting." Do-hyun smiled. It was the first time anyone had called him interesting. The cadet barracks were long rooms filled with sleeping pods. Each species had pods designed for their body type. Do-hyun found his pod in the corner. It looked like a simple bed with a curved cover over it. Next to him was Crix's pod, which looked like a vertical tube filled with some kind of gel. On his other side was a pod belonging to a reptilian female named Tosca. Tosca had green scales, yellow eyes with vertical pupils, and a tail that was almost as long as she was tall. When Do-hyun introduced himself, she hissed softly and moved her pod 2 meters further away. "She thinks humans carry parasites." Crix explained quietly. "We don't carry parasites," Do-hyun said. "You carry billions of bacteria inside your bodies. You have organisms living in your intestines. There are small creatures living on your skin right now, eating dead cells." Do-hyun looked at his arm. "That is actually true. See? Parasites." That night, all the new cadets gathered in the main hall. The room was enormous, big enough to hold 1,000 beings easily. Do-hyun stood near the back, trying not to draw attention. He failed. Several aliens kept glancing at him, including a group of crystalline beings who made ringing sounds whenever they moved. A booming voice silenced everyone. Commander Yellick walked onto the raised platform at the front of the hall. She was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor plates that looked like they had grown naturally from her body. Her face had no visible eyes, just a row of sensors that glowed red. When she spoke, her voice came from somewhere inside her chest. "You are cadets of the Galactic Military Academy," she announced. "You are here because your planets believe you are worthy. I do not care what your planets believe. You will prove your worth to me." Nobody made a sound. "War is coming. It always comes. The galaxy is vast and dangerous, and there are enemies beyond our borders who wish to destroy everything we have built. You will learn to fight. You will learn to lead. You will learn to face your fears." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Tomorrow, we begin your first lesson. We will teach you what it means to confront true terror. We will bring something to this hall that has made cadets scream, that has made cadets run, that has made cadets die from fear alone." A murmur went through the crowd. Do-hyun felt Crix pressing closer to him, mandibles clicking rapidly. "The Vorath," someone whispered. The words spread through the hall like fire. Do-hyun heard it repeated in a dozen different languages. He didn't know what a Vorath was, but from the reactions around him, it was nothing good. After Commander Yellick dismissed them, Do-hyun walked back to his pod with Crix shaking beside him. "What is a Vorath?" Do-hyun asked. Crix stopped walking. His compound eyes were so wide that Do-hyun could see his own reflection clearly in each tiny segment. "The Vorath is death," Crix said. "It is the apex predator of the jungle moon, Keth 4. It hunts through fear. It can smell terror. It can sense panic. When you are afraid, it knows. And when it knows, it comes for you. Has anyone ever survived meeting one? No one who was afraid." Crix grabbed Do-hyun's arm with one of his smaller hands. "You must learn to control your fear, human. If you show fear tomorrow, the Vorath will know. And it will kill you." That night, lying in his pod, Do-hyun thought about fear. He thought about the wild boar that had chased him when he was 12. He remembered how his heart had pounded, how his legs had burned as he ran, how he had scrambled up that tree so fast he had torn the skin from his palms. But he also remembered sitting in that tree afterward, looking down at the boar as it snorted and pawed at the ground. He remembered how his fear had slowly faded, replaced by something else: curiosity, interest. He wondered what the boar had been so angry about. He wondered what a Vorath looked like. He wondered if it was afraid too, being brought to a strange place full of screaming aliens. Then he closed his eyes and slept, dreaming of mountains and rice fields and creatures that weren't as scary as everyone said. Tomorrow would be interesting. The morning came too fast for most cadets. Do-hyun woke to the sound of Crix making clicking noises in his sleep. Tosca was already awake, her yellow eyes staring at the ceiling of her pod. She had not slept at all. De-hyun ate breakfast in the meal hall. The food dispensers had trouble figuring out what humans could eat, so they gave him something that looked like gray paste. It tasted like rice mixed with fish, which was good enough for him. Around him, other cadets picked at their food. Nobody was hungry. Everyone was thinking about what was coming. "You should eat more," Do-hyun said to Crix, who sat across from him. "I cannot eat when I am afraid," Crix replied. His mandibles were moving constantly, a nervous habit. "My species digests food differently when we are stressed. If I eat now, I will become sick. Maybe it will not be that bad." 3 cycles ago, a cadet died. Her heart stopped from pure terror. She was a Velthan. Velthans have 3 hearts. All three stopped at once. Crix pushed his food away. It will be that bad. Dahyun finished his gray paste in silence. The training hall was the largest room Dahyun had ever seen. It was built to hold thousands of beings and still have room for combat exercises. Today, all 147 new cadets stood in the center, arranged in rows by species. Dahyun stood in his row alone. The only human. Commander Yelik stood on a platform at the front. Behind her, a team of soldiers in heavy armor stood guard around a massive metal container. The container was 4 meters tall and 6 meters wide. Energy shields shimmered across its surface, creating patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Something inside the container was breathing. Dahyun could hear it. A deep, slow sound like wind moving through a cave. Each breath made the air feel heavier. He noticed that the soldiers guarding the container had their weapons drawn, even though the shields were still active. "Today you face your first test," Commander Yelik announced. A voice echoed off the walls. The Vorath is the most feared predator in the known galaxy. It does not hunt with speed. It does not hunt with strength. It hunts with fear. She walked toward the container, her armored feet making the floor shake with each step. The Vorath can smell fear. It can taste the chemicals your body releases when you are terrified. To a Vorath, your terror is a signal. It tells the creature that you are prey. The more afraid you are, the more interesting you become. A cadet near the front started crying. It was a small being covered in soft blue fur. Its tears left wet trails down its face as its whole body shook. "Your mission is simple," Commander Yelik continued. "Control your fear. Do not run. Do not scream. Show the Vorath that you are not prey." She paused. "Fail, and you will die. Not from the creature. The Academy will not allow that. But from your own body shutting down in terror." She turned to the soldiers. "Release it." The energy shields flickered once, twice, and then went dark. For a moment, nothing happened. The container sat in silence. Even the breathing had stopped. Dahyun watched the front panel, waiting. Then the panel exploded outward. The Vorath was nothing like Dahyun had imagined. He had expected something with teeth and claws, something obviously dangerous. What came out of the container was worse, because it was beautiful. The creature stood on 6 legs, each one ending in curved claws that scraped against the floor like knives on metal. Its body was covered in fur that seemed to drink in the light around it. The fur was black, but not a normal black. It was the black of deep space, of caves that never saw sunlight, of the moment before a storm swallowed the sky. Its head was broad and flat, almost like a big cat's head, but wider. And where normal creatures had 2 eyes, the Vorath had dozens. They covered its face in clusters, each one glowing soft amber. The eyes moved independently, looking in different directions, taking in everything at once. The creature was as tall as Dahyun at the shoulder. When it opened its mouth, rows of teeth reflected the hall's lights like broken mirrors. The hall erupted. Cadets screamed. The blue-furred creature that had been crying collapsed completely, unconscious before it hit the ground. Crix made a high-pitched keening sound and fell backward, his exoskeleton clattering against the floor. Tosca's scales, normally green, turned pure white as her body reacted to absolute terror. Near the front, one of the crystalline beings simply fell apart. Its body broke into 100 separate pieces that scattered across the floor. Dahyun learned later that this was a defense mechanism for their species. When terrified beyond reason, they separated into components to protect their core consciousness. The Vorath walked forward slowly. Its many eyes swept across the room, drinking in the fear. Dahyun could see its nostrils flaring, taking deep breaths of air that must have been thick with the smell of terror. Cadets scrambled backward, pushing against each other, trying to get away. Some ran for the exits. Commander Yelik did not stop them. This was part of the test. Those who ran had failed. The creature moved through the chaos with an almost lazy grace. It was in no hurry. It had all the time in the world. Every terrified heartbeat, every panicked breath, every chemical signal of fear was feeding something deep inside it. Then it stopped. Its head turned. Dozens of amber eyes focused on a single point in the room. Do-hyun stood in his row, alone now that everyone around him had fled or fallen. He had not moved. He had not screamed. He was watching the Vorath with his head tilted slightly to one side, the way he used to watch animals on his grandfather's farm. The creature's nostrils flared again, harder this time. It took a step toward him, then another. Do-hyun did not run. He was thinking about the creature's fur. It looked soft. Softer than anything he had seen since leaving Earth. He wondered what it felt like. He wondered if it was warm or cold. He noticed the way the creature's muscles moved under its skin, powerful but controlled. He noticed how its many eyes blinked in sequence. Rather than all at once thought he was not afraid. He was curious. The Vorath was coming directly toward him now. Behind him, Do-hyun heard Crix's weak voice saying something, probably telling him to run. He heard Commander Yellick give an order, probably to the soldiers to prepare their weapons. He heard the sound of energy rifles charging, but he kept watching the creature. And the creature kept watching him. It was close now. 5 meters away. Then 3. Then 1. The Vorath lowered its massive head until those countless amber eyes were level with Do-hyun's own. Hot breath washed over his face, carrying a smell like rain and wet earth and something electric, like the air before a thunderstorm. Do-hyun looked into those eyes. He saw something there that he recognized. The creature was confused. It had never encountered anything like him before. Slowly, carefully, Do-hyun raised his hand. He moved without sudden motion, the way his grandfather had taught him to move around nervous animals. He reached out and scratched gently behind one of the creature's ears. The fur was exactly as soft as he had imagined. "Hello," Do-hyun said quietly. "You are beautiful." The Vorath made a sound that no one in that hall had ever heard before. It purred. The sound filled the training hall. It was deep and low, a vibration that came from somewhere inside the Vorath's massive chest. It traveled through the floor and up through Do-hyun's feet. He could feel it in his bones. The creature was purring. Commander Yellick stood frozen on her platform. In 200 years of military service, she had seen many strange things. She had fought in wars across 3 galaxies. She had faced enemies that could break minds with a thought. But she had never seen a Vorath purr. The soldiers behind her did not know what to do. Their weapons were raised, but they had no orders to fire. Their training covered many situations, but not this one. Do-hyun continued scratching behind the creature's ear. The fur there was even softer than the rest, almost like touching a cloud. The Vorath leaned into his hand, pressing its massive head against his palm the way a cat presses against its owner. "You like that?" Do-hyun asked softly. "You are just a big baby, aren't you?" The Vorath made a sound that was somewhere between a growl and a whine. It was not a threatening sound. It was the sound of an animal asking for more attention. Around them, cadets who had not completely fled were watching in shock. Crix had managed to stand up again. Though his legs were shaking so badly, he looked like he might fall at any moment. His compound eyes were so wide that they covered most of his triangular face. "What is happening?" Someone whispered. "Is the human controlling it?" Humans cannot control minds. They have no psychic abilities. Then what is he doing? Do-hyun moved his hand from the creature's ear to the top of its head. The Vorath lowered itself slightly, making it easier for him to reach. Its many amber eyes were half closed now, the lids drooping with obvious pleasure. "You have been in that box for a long time," Do-hyun said, still speaking softly. "That must have been scary." New place. Bright lights. Strange smells. Everyone screaming at you. That is a lot for anyone. The Vorath made another purring sound. I know how that feels. When I first came to this station, everyone ran away from me too. They thought I was going to hurt them. Do-hyun smiled. But you are not going to hurt anyone, are you? You just want someone to be nice to you. The creature began to move. For a moment, everyone tensed. The soldiers raised their weapons higher. Commander Yellick took a step forward. But the Vorath was not attacking. It was circling round, and round it went, turning in a tight circle next to Do-hyun. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, with a heavy sigh that blew Do-hyun's hair back from his face, it lay down, right next to him, right on his feet. The creature's massive head came to rest on top of Do-hyun's boots. Its eyes closed completely. Its breathing slowed. Within moments, the most feared predator in the known galaxy was fast asleep and snoring. The snores were like small earthquakes. They rattled the floor and made the walls vibrate. Somewhere in the back of the hall, a piece of equipment fell off a shelf from the vibrations. Do-hyun looked down at the sleeping creature. He looked back up at Commander Yellick. He looked at the soldiers with their weapons. He looked at the terrified cadets. Then he shrugged. I think it was tired, he said. Commander Yellick's translator made a strange sound. Later, Do-hyun learned that this meant her words had been too confused for the device to process. She tried again. Cadet Park, what have you done? I do not know, Do-hyun admitted. I just thought it looked soft and scared. So I pet it. You pet it? Yes. The Vorath, the apex predator of Kethfor, the creature that has killed over 3,000 beings across the galaxy. You pet it. Its fur is very soft. Behind him, Do-hyun heard Crix make a sound. He turned to look. His bunkmate was standing there with his mandibles hanging open so wide that something in his jaw had clearly gone wrong. Later, the medical officers would have to put it back in place. Commander Yellick walked slowly toward Do-hyun and the sleeping Vorath. The soldiers followed her, weapons still ready. She stopped about 3 meters away, close enough to see, but far enough to run if needed. In the entire recorded history of the Vorath species, she said, no one has ever touched one and lived. Those who tried were killed instantly. Their bodies were never recovered. Maybe they were afraid, Do-hyun suggested. Of course they were afraid. Everyone is afraid of a Vorath. Fear is natural. Fear is survival. Fear is maybe that was the problem. Commander Yellick stopped talking. She stared at Do-hyun with her row of sensor eyes, trying to understand what she was seeing. Explain, she said finally. You said the Vorath hunts through fear. It can smell terror. When you are afraid, it sees you as prey. Do-hyun looked down at the sleeping creature. But I was not afraid. I was curious. Maybe it did not know what to do with that. The commander considered this. No one can choose not to be afraid. Fear is automatic. It is a response in the brain that cannot be controlled. Do-hyun thought about this. He thought about the wild boar that had chased him when he was young. He had been afraid then, very afraid. But after a few minutes in that tree, the fear had faded. He had started wondering about the boar instead. Why was it so angry? What had scared it? Was it protecting babies somewhere nearby? Humans can be afraid and curious at the same time, he said slowly. We can feel the fear and then decide to think about something else instead. Maybe we cannot stop the fear, but we can choose not to let it control us. That is impossible. I do not think it is. Do-hyun smiled down at the Vorath. I think we just do it so often that we do not notice anymore. The creature shifted in its sleep. One of its 6 legs kicked slightly, the way a dog's leg kicks when it is dreaming. Its claws scraped against the floor, leaving long marks in the metal dot it made a small sound, almost like a bark. Doyen wondered what Vorath dreamed about. Commander Yellick stood in silence for a long moment. Then she turned to one of the soldiers. "Get me Dr. Yun," she ordered. "Tell her we have something she needs to see." The xenobiologist? The human xenobiologist. If anyone can explain what is happening, it will be another human. The soldier ran off. Commander Yellick looked at Doyun one more time. "Do not move," she said. "Do not wake it. Do not do anything until the doctor arrives." Don nodded. He looked down at the Varus sleeping on his feet. The creature was very heavy. His toes were starting to go numb. But he did not mind. He had always wanted a pet. Around him, cadets slowly began to return to the hall. They came in small groups, staying close to the walls, watching the impossible scene with wide eyes. The human stood in the center of the room with a monster sleeping at his feet, scratching its ears like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Maybe, they thought. Humans were stranger than anyone had realized. Maybe strange was not always a bad thing. Dr. Yun Soman arrived 43 minutes later. She came running through the training hall doors with scanning equipment in her arms, and her hair escaping from the knot she had tied it in that morning. She was the only other human on Station Helios 7, a xenobiologist who had been studying alien life for 15 years. She stopped running when she saw the scene in front of her. "Oh," she said quietly. "That is not possible." "Dr. Yun," Commander Yellick said, "please explain what we are looking at." "I cannot explain it, because it cannot be happening." Soman walked closer, her eyes fixed on the sleeping Varth. "In my entire career, I have studied over 2,000 species. I have written papers on creatures from every corner of the galaxy. But I have never seen a Vorath sleep. They do not sleep? Not like this. Vorath do not relax. They do not let their guard down. They are always hunting, always watching. Even when they rest, their eyes stay open." She pointed at the creature. "This one has its eyes closed. Completely closed. It is in deep sleep. It trusts its surroundings enough to be completely vulnerable." Dohan looked down at the Vorath. It had shifted positions during the wait. Now its head was in his lap instead of on his feet. He had been given a chair at some point, and the creature had simply followed him, refusing to let him out of its reach. "Maybe it is just tired," he offered. Someone shook her head. "This is not about being tired. The Vorath is a predator that evolved on one of the most dangerous moons in the galaxy. Everything on Keth 4 wants to kill everything else. Sleeping deeply means death. They should not be able to do this." She turned on her scanning equipment and pointed it at the creature. Data began filling the screen. Her eyes grew wider with each reading. "This is impossible," she said again. "You keep saying that," Commander Yellick observed. "Because it keeps being true." Soman pulled up a different display. "Look at these neural patterns. The Vorath's brain activity is completely calm. Not just calm for a predator. Calm like what? Like a baby sleeping next to its mother." Silence filled the hall. Everyone stared at Soman, trying to understand what she meant. "Let me show you something." Soman connected her scanner to the main display screen. A large image appeared, showing the Vorath's brain activity in colorful waves. This is what a Vorath's brain normally looks like. High activity, constant alertness, always ready to fight or hunt. She pressed a button. The image changed. This is what this Vorath's brain looks like right now. Low activity, complete relaxation, no hunting instincts active at all. She pointed at a specific part of the brain. "And this area here? This is the part that activates when a Vorath is near its young. It releases chemicals that make the creature protective and gentle. In adult Vorath, this part of the brain usually turns off forever after the offspring grow up. But in this creature, right now, it is fully active. Dahyun looked down at the Vareth again. It made a small sound in its sleep and pressed closer against him. Why? Commander Yelik asked. Why is this happening? Soman turned to Dahyun. May I scan you? Yes. She pointed her equipment at him. More data filled the screen. She stared at it for a long time, her eyebrows pulling together. Humans are broken, she said finally. Excuse me? Let me explain. Soman put down her scanner and turned to face the room. Other scientists had arrived by now, along with military officials who had come from other parts of the station. They all listened carefully. Every species in the galaxy has fear responses. When afraid, your body releases specific chemicals. These chemicals tell predators that you are prey. The Vareth evolved to detect these chemicals. When it smells fear, its hunting instincts activate. It cannot help this. It is hardwired into its brain. She pointed at Dahyun. Humans have fear responses too. When afraid, humans release a chemical called adrenaline. But here is the strange thing. Human adrenaline has a chemical structure that is almost identical to the pheromones Vareth mothers produce when calming their young. Everyone stared at her. You are saying, Commander Yelik said slowly, that when humans are afraid, they smell like Vareth mothers? Yes, but that is only part of it. Soman brought up another display. Look at these brain scans. When I told Cadet Park that a terrifying predator was about to wake up next to him, his body did release adrenaline. His fear response did activate. But he was not afraid, someone said. No, his body was afraid. His brain decided to feel curious instead. Soman smiled slightly. Humans have the ability to override their fear responses through conscious thought. They can feel fear in their bodies while choosing to think about something else with their minds. No other known species can do this. That is not possible, an alien scientist said. Fear is automatic. The brain cannot simply choose to ignore it. Soman laughed. Tell that to humans. We have a long history of feeling afraid and then doing the scary thing anyway. We call it bravery, or stubbornness, or sometimes stupidity. But whatever you call it, it is real. She turned back to Dahyun. So what happened here? The Vareth approached Cadet Park, ready to hunt. But instead of smelling prey, it smelled something that reminded it of safety, of comfort, of being a baby with its mother. And instead of detecting a terrified victim, it found a curious creature who wanted to pet it. Dahyun scratched behind the Vareth's ear. It purred again, louder this time. To this Vareth, Soman concluded, Cadet Park is not prey. He is home. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Commander Yelik spoke. So humans smell like safety and can choose not to be afraid. In simple terms, yes. And this means they can befriend the most dangerous predator in the galaxy by scratching its ears? Soman nodded. Apparently. Commander Yelik turned to look at Dahyun. He was sitting in his chair with a monster in his lap, scratching its ears and humming softly. The creature that had made cadets faint from terror was now rolling onto its back, all 6 legs in the air, clearly demanding belly rubs. I had a dog when I was young, Dahyun explained, as if this made everything clear. Her name was Bori. She was scared of thunderstorms. I would pet her until she felt better. He rubbed the Vareth's belly. It made a sound of pure happiness. I think I will call this one Bomi, he decided. Somewhere in the back of the room, Crix fainted again. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within one day, everyone on Station Helia 7 knew about the human who had tamed a Vareth. Within 1 week, the story had spread to every corner of the Galactic Alliance. Within 1 month, humans went from being unknown newcomers to the most talked about species in thousands of star systems. The Academy's fear Conditioning program was cancelled immediately. Commander Yellick did not need to explain why. The image of their terrifying test subject sleeping in a cadet's lap had already been shared across millions of networks. No one would ever take the program seriously again. Bomi stayed at the academy. The creature refused to leave Do-Yoon's side. When scientists tried to take it back to its containment unit, it growled so loudly that the walls cracked. When they tried to move Do-Yoon away instead, Bomi simply followed him, knocking over equipment and soldiers alike. Eventually, everyone gave up. Now, Bomi attended classes. She sat next to Do-Yoon during every lecture, her massive body taking up the space of 5 normal cadets. She slept through most of the lessons, her purring so loud that teachers had to use amplifiers to be heard. Sometimes she woke up to yawn, displaying rows of teeth that still made cadets nervous. Then she would put her head back on Do-Yoon's feet and fall asleep again. The other cadets slowly grew used to the situation. It took time. Many of them still crossed to the other side of hallways when they saw Bomi coming. But a few of the braver ones started to approach. Crix was the first dot. It happened 3 weeks after the incident. Do-Yoon was sitting in the common area, reading a report on his tablet. Bomi was sleeping beside him, as always. Crix approached slowly, his legs trembling with each step. "I want to try," he said. Do-Yoon looked up. "Try what?" "Touching it, her." Crix's mandibles clicked nervously. "Dr. Yun says that if we can control our fear, Navarth might accept us too. She says humans learned this skill over many generations. Maybe other species can learn it as well." Do-Yoon smiled. "Come here, slowly. Do not make sudden movements." Crix moved closer. Bomi's eyes opened, all of them at once, fixing on the approaching insectoid. A low rumble built in her chest. "It is okay, Bomi," Do-Yoon said softly. He placed his hand on her head, scratching her favorite spot behind the ear. "This is Crix. He's my friend. He will not hurt you." The rumbling faded. Bomi's eyes stayed open, watching, but she did not move. Crix reached out with one trembling hand. His fingers touched the dark fur on Bomi's side. The creature turned her head toward him. Those dozens of amber eyes examined him closely. Crix made a small sound of fear that he could not control. Then Bomi sniffed him once and went back to sleep. "She accepted you," Do-Yoon said. Crix stood frozen with his hand on the Varath's fur. His mandibles moved, but no sound came out. Later, he would describe the fur as the softest thing he had ever touched. He would also describe the moment as the most terrifying and wonderful experience of his life. Other cadets followed after that. Tosca was one of the last. The reptilian female still did not trust humans, and she definitely did not trust Vorath. But she watched from a distance as cadet after cadet touched the sleeping monster and walked away unharmed. Finally, she approached. "I still think you are strange," she told Do-Hyun. "I probably am," he agreed. "And I still think humans carry parasites. We definitely do." Tosca stared at him. Then, very carefully, she reached out and touched Bomi's fur. The Vorath barely stirred. "Soft," Tosca admitted quietly. Then she walked away, her scales slowly returning to their normal green from the white of fear. Months passed. The academy changed. The presence of a Vorath wandering the hallways meant that security had to be adjusted. The presence of a human who could apparently befriend anything meant that expectations had to be adjusted. Commander Yellick submitted a formal request to the Galactic Council. She asked for mandatory human integration into all military units. Her reasoning was simple. If one human cadet could accidentally domesticate the galaxy's most feared predator through nothing more than curiosity and ear scratches, imagine what a platoon of humans could do. The council discussed the request for 3 days. They reviewed the evidence. They watched the recordings of Do-Yoon petting a monster. They read Dr. Yun's scientific papers on human fear responses and the strange chemistry of human adrenaline. Then they approved the request. Unanimously, humans would be integrated into every military unit in the Alliance, not as soldiers necessarily, as something harder to define. Peacekeepers, perhaps, or monster befrienders, or simply the people you called when you needed someone too stubborn to be properly scared. Graduation day came on a bright morning when the station faced toward a nearby star. Cadets from 12 species stood in formation in the main hall. They wore their formal uniforms and carried their certificates of completion. Do-hyun stood in his row with Bomi sitting beside him. The creature was wearing a large ribbon around her neck, bright blue, the Academy's color. She had eaten 3 ribbons before allowing this one to be tied properly. When Do-hyun's name was called, he walked toward the platform where Admiral Chun waited. She was human too, one of the first humans to reach such a high rank in the Alliance military. She had gray hair, calm eyes, and a smile that suggested she had seen everything and was no longer surprised by anything. Bomi followed Do-hyun to the platform. She climbed the steps with him, her claws clicking against the metal. Admiral Chun looked at the Varth. The Varth looked back at her with all of its eyes. "Cadet Park," the Admiral said. "Your companion is not technically enrolled in this academy." Do-hyun glanced at Bomi. She yawned, displaying every single one of her teeth. "Respectfully, Admiral, I do not think she cares about technicalities." Admiral Chun laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine. "No, I suppose she does not." She handed Do-hyun his graduation certificate. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a second certificate. "This one is for her. Honorary graduation. Try not to let her eat it." Bomi sniffed the certificate. She licked it once. Then she ate it in one bite. Admiral Chun did not seem surprised. Do-hyun walked back to his place in the formation. Bomi walked beside him, her head high, her many eyes scanning the room with something that might have been pride. Around them, cadets watched with expressions that had changed over the months. There was less fear now, more wonder. Some even looked at the human and his monster with something like respect. After the ceremony, Crix found Do-hyun in the crowd. "What will you do now?" he asked. His mandibles still clicked when he was nervous, but not as much as before. "Where will you go?" Do-hyun looked down at Bomi. She pressed against his leg, purring softly. "Wherever they send me," he said. "Wherever something needs befriending." And so the galaxy learned what Earth had known for thousands of years. Humans did not conquer through fear. They did not win through strength or speed or natural weapons. They won by looking at the most dangerous things in the universe and thinking, "I wonder if that wants to be friends." They won by petting monsters until the monsters purred. They won by being too curious to be properly afraid. Some species called it madness. They pointed out that humans had no armor, no venom, no psychic powers. They were soft and fragile and lived such short lives. By all logic, they should have died long ago. But humans had something that no other species understood. They had the ability to see a terrifying predator and think it looked soft. They had the ability to feel fear and choose curiosity instead. They had the ability to reach out their hand and touch the thing that everyone else was running from. They called this bravery, or stubbornness, or sometimes love. Do-hyun walked out of the academy with Bomi at his side. The stars stretched out before them, billions of lights in the endless dark. Somewhere out there were more creatures that needed befriending. More monsters that wanted someone to scratch behind their ears. More fear that needed to be replaced with wonder. He was ready, Dodd, and beside him, purring so loud that the floor vibrated, Bomi was ready too. After all, she had found the best friend in the galaxy, Dodd. She was not going to let him go.